Hello, everybody. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's the 4th of July, so happy 4th of
Happy
July.
4th of July, everybody.
All right, and here we go with our special presentation. And it's called You're a Grand Old Flag.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you reign. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true, red, white, and blue, and there's never a post or brag. Though the acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag.
All right, and they go marching down the street to sing for other people. Thanks for being with us this morning, and that was fun, Marcia.
Yes, it was.
All right, and thank you for giving me my little Statue of Liberty headdress, but it kept slipping down on me.
I know. It's hard for you boys who didn't grow up wearing headbands and things.
Tiaras, that's because we didn't think we were princesses.
No, you didn't. Who took my tea?
I took your tea.
Yeah.
Did I do bad? Sorry.
Yes, you did. Give me back my tea. All right, if you get thirsty, let me know.
Okay. Jeez.
Any other day of the week, you could just simply say, would somebody please bring me a drink? And then it would just show up.
Yeah, because I have this producer that takes care of things like
I
that.
know.
Yeah, where is she today?
I know. A little slack taking the 4th of July off.
You know, it's funny. I listened to the lyrics of that song, and the one part that everybody forgets, or it's the hardest to remember, is there's never a boast nor a brag.
You know, it's so funny that you bring that up, because as I was singing it, I thought,
Never a post or brag. Yet here we are wearing these outfits and big, it's like Uncle Sam is the greatest.
Well, that's not a boast or a brag.
Okay.
It's just showing patriotism and paying tribute to.
Fair play. That's a good comment.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's happy 4th of July to everyone. Thanks for joining me and Marcia here for our Friday live chat on McDuff Lives. And
yes, indeed.
Yeah, if you'd like to enter the chat, you're very welcome. We monitor it on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X.
Mm-hmm.
So jump right in if you like to. But I was thinking, I guess you're absolutely right about patriotism. But there does come a time when parts of American popular music seems to be like bragging.
Okay, yeah.
And boasting and the whole fist pump USA thing. It's like we're the greatest, like Muhammad Ali. I'm the greatest, USA.
Well, and I think also that song comes from a time when boasting and bragging were considered unseemly.
That's my point.
Yeah. That's a good point. And there's boasting and bragging aren't necessarily bad. Feeling good about yourself is a good thing, and sharing that with others is a good thing.
Well, okay.
Oh, look, Corky's here. Good morning, Corky.
Hey, Corky, man. Thanks for joining us again.
Hola, happy 4th. Our hood will explode later. Lively. Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, it's going to be noisy tonight.
Did you realize it was noisy last night, or were you already sound asleep?
I was asleep.
Yeah. The fireworks across the river were last night at Colonial Beach, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right across the river from us is Colonial Beach, Virginia. And it's a good 5 miles away because the Potomac is very, very wide at that point. But when they have their fireworks, everybody on Cobb Island, Mystery Island, goes to watch, and they for across the river, and I was we were watching TV last night, and I heard what I thought was thunder until it became continuous, and then I thought, "Oh, I wonder if that's not fireworks." And this morning I saw on Facebook that it was indeed fireworks across the river. So it started last night, but
Yeah.
tonight it will be much. I don't think that Toto realized it was going on.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
She was already asleep then.
I didn't perceive any distress on Toto's part.
She has a
So,
hard time with
oh,
any
she's
guns or
terrified.
anything. Yeah, she
So,
starts shivering like.
yeah. So tonight we're gonna have a very, very scared little doggy.
Aw. Well, Corky has a good comment there.
Pride is a vice. Fulfillment is from choices well made.
I like that.
I do too.
Yeah, I never heard it put that way. It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I am proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a citizen of the United States of America. And also, I look at America as my homeland. It's most people have a homeland, and I'm glad to have been able to live in my homeland and feel like I am part of it,
Mhm.
for my whole life.
Mhm.
And that doesn't stop me from being highly critical of things like the coup that we've been talking about here at the channel for the past week and a half or so. And I intend to keep talking about it. I'll be doing part 3 of my Undo the Coup series on Monday. Hope you can join me for that. And so I'm talking about the coup of 1963, where certain powers behind the scenes
Yeah.
colluded into causing the assassination of our president. Now, we elected that guy, it's our president. It's not like your president. It's not, the presidency doesn't belong to the military or the CIA or the Congress or to anybody else or to any other secret societies or to the church or to anybody else. It belongs to the people of the United States that elected him. And that is what was gotten violated.
Right.
They took it upon themselves to say, well, we know what's good for the country, so we're just going to get rid of this guy.
Right. They decided to impeach him, but faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Corky has another comment that I think is worth considering, and that is a lot of folks that are younger than I am view 9/11 as the big transformative event of our time. And I will say that
Exactly.
you're not wrong. It is a huge transformative event. However, if the coup hadn't happened in 1963, then the powers that pulled off 9/11 would have never been in power.
Mm.
Unless there was
Yeah.
a subsequent coup, let's say.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you're right. Absolutely. Who knows? I mean, it's just there's no way of knowing what would have happened if they had not been successful in 63. And, anything is possible. The world could be very, very different.
Well,
Very different. Yeah.
the only thing that it really required was a legitimate investigation. And then you would have run into Alan Dulles and the forces behind Alan Dulles. I think it's important to remember that Alan Dulles is simply a functionary in a much deeper collusion, which runs through the law firm of Sullivan and Cromwell that we've talked
Right.
about so much. And it's the clients of those lawyers that they're serving and not the people of the United States who elected the president. So there comes a conflict between what their clients want and what the people of the United States thought they elected. And that's how it happens. To deny that it was a coup, to say, no, it was just a single lone nut shooter, excuses all those people. And if we had a legitimate investigation, then people like Richard Bissell and Alan Dulles and Charles Cabell and the rest of them would have been exposed and shamed and probably locked up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So Video Man is here. Happy Independence Day. Welcome, Video Man.
Yeah. Welcome.
DJT's head blown off would have been another bad pivot. Ooh. Yeah. Uh-oh. Toto is not happy about the, I don't know if it was about the comment or is it about the noise outside. It's hard to know
I
for
think
sure.
it's the noise. It's a Saturday morning, so everybody gets to run their machines outside.
No, it's not Saturday morning. It's Friday.
But it's a holiday.
But it's a holiday.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not real happy about the machines outside. I don't think that machines outside should be on a holiday, but some people have quite the work ethic.
Yes. And some people like to have their mornings quiet.
Yes, and that includes Toto.
I don't know. Toto may have to go lie down, you know.
They may do that on their own. Yeah, I suspect that, well, anyway, enough about Toto and back to undo the coup.
I still got my flag, but I'm taking off this wonderful tiara that you made for me.
Oh, don't tell people that I made it. I bought it at the little general store down the way. No. Marcia has no willingness or talent for making things like this. So it does hurt a little bit, actually. It's one of the reasons I never wore headbands as a girl.
You know, I keep questioning my own willingness to celebrate this country with all of the horrible things going on in the world in which our American power is clearly making them possible. And the war in Ukraine, which that's a Biden team thing,
right?
That Trump is trying to get out of. But that's our money. We're the taxpayers. We're paying. We elect the president. We want him to do what we want done. And I certainly don't think that the American people, absent the propaganda media that we're subject to, would want to spend all that money supporting Zelensky. I just don't see it.
Yeah, well, we're supporting many troubling things right now.
Yeah,
the whole thing in Gaza. Just
how can I be happy when I know that that these innocent civilian people are getting bombed day and night,
right?
And
bombed, starved, their homes destroyed.
And these really insidious shootings where they drop some aid somewhere and then the people come to get the aid and then they shoot them.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I get more photos of that stuff than I ever really want to look at, but it crosses my feed, on my X feed. I follow Mint Press News, and they're always putting pictures up, and they get more and more gory and more disgusting. It's awful. And then the killing doctors and journalists
and their families. Yeah. It's heartbreaking, and we have no concept of what that would be like, and that is where I am glad to be an American, and I do feel very proud of the country that I live in, and I feel very lucky to have been born an American.
Yeah, me too.
But we have, and because of that, we have no concept of what it's like to live in a place where you are being bombed and starved and prevented from living your life, prevented from pursuing happiness and
that's it right there. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what America's about. America is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly.
And yes, we want to do it in our own country. We want to have sovereignty. We don't want to try to rule the world. Yet when we go out into the world and empower dictators and empower people like Netanyahu to do these horrible crimes, then that's not us. That's not who we're supposed to be. And it almost makes me sick to think about it.
And there are so many other places that don't even get talked about. All of there's so many countries in Africa where people are being kidnapped and women are being forced into marriages. Teenage girls, not even women, teenage girls
Yeah.
are being forced into marriages with terrorists. I mean, that's how they recruit the terrorists. And they kidnap these girls and then they force them to, quote, marry these guys. And they tell the guys, come be terrorists with us and you'll get a wife. And, all the benefits that go with it. And we all know what that means. It's horrible. And people who are being forced out of their homes, and civil wars going on in more countries in Africa than I can name, because we went in there, we took advantage of their resources, and then we left them in total chaos. It's, and it's all around the globe. In Asia, there are countries where people are struggling and suffering, and it's just heartbreaking. And that doesn't even get any coverage. I mean, because to us, we think that stuff like that going on in those countries is normal. That's the state of normal, so there's no reason to report it.
That's very well put. And that's the result of the Alan Dulles programs in the 50s and 60s, in which they create what they call the Great Wurlitzer, and they pump out all of this propaganda at us that takes up all of our understanding. Let me make a comment here to Catherine before we move on. She says she doesn't see any comments unless I highlight them on the screen, because you're on YouTube, Catherine, and most of the folks that make comments are on Rumble. And so it's, at least historically, that's where most of the comments are made. So unfortunately, you can't see Rumble comments on YouTube, and that's why you're not seeing the other comments.
Yeah, good point.
And so, yeah, we only select as many as we can.
That's right.
But
can't get to all of them, though we try. We try, and we want to.
Oh, don't miss that nice compliment from Quilting Nurse there.
Okay, but I do want to comment on this, because Corky says demonic influences make children hate, quote, enemies. And that's so important. Hence, it never ends. Minds manipulated are the real weapons, not just empire and stomping on economies. And I love that, Corky. One of my favorite quotes, and I quote it a lot, is a quote from Stephen Biko, who was he's South African.
Yeah.
And some people may know him, some may not. But the quote is, and I won't get it exactly right, but it's something like the greatest power in the hands of the oppressors is the minds of the oppressed. And I just love that. That's it exactly. Minds manipulated are the real weapon. So thank you for that, Corky.
Okay, right. That ties in with what I was trying to say earlier, and that is, when do you impose this we're the good guys and everybody else is the bad guys, or at least everybody else is suspicious and don't trust them, then you're putting that mindset into children.
Right.
That of course continues as Corky says.
Yeah. So you wanted me to post this nice comment from Quilting Nurse. Thank you, Quilting Nurse. Yes, 4th of July. You got to kind of get into the spirit.
I like the comment. I'm not sure the Brits got us back. I don't think they got us back, except for the economy. They own the economy, but they didn't get our hearts and souls.
I don't know. I get so annoyed with everybody's idolizing the royal family. And right now, it seems like I am constantly seeing this and that about Princess Catherine and how wonderful she is and how strong she is and how stylish she is. And I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. I can understand how people loved Diana, because she was one of the first to be unwilling
to toe the line. She was unwilling to be obedient and do the right thing and say the right thing and to go along with this whole image of the royals being above everybody else. And it got her a lot of disfavor with the royals. And that's why everybody loved her. But now suddenly everybody loves Catherine for just the opposite reason, because she is so unlike Meghan, and she's doing the right thing, and she's stylish, and she dresses the way she's supposed to, and she's dignified. And oh, please, these people aren't above anything, but they think they are. And we think they are. The Americans do. And I keep wanting to say, we had a revolution, people. Why are we idolizing this royal family? I have a lot of respect for Harry and Meghan, who said, enough of this. We're going to America.
That's really is the theme of American history, is that folks, if you study the 19th century, you realize that it was not until the end of that century that America started being drawn back into the British, neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Commonwealth, but into strong ties of foreign policy and economic
Right.
policy around the world. And that happens with Theodore Roosevelt and just continues from there. So by the time that, you and I are born in the 50s, the behind the scenes, the British have so many tentacles into our government, which happened, during the whole 20th century, that we didn't see. And it's only now that we're able to see how, and only a few people are able to see how pernicious this British Empire has been in taking our, it's commonly said, Britain uses the American muscle to achieve
Right.
its
Yes.
imperial aims. And
Yes.
that's what was going on in Ukraine, right? And I would also argue that's what's going on in Gaza, is that ultimately, if you
Wow.
go back from Israel, and where did Israel come from? It all came from Britain. The whole idea of the Zionist state, and right there in Palestine, so convenient to the British free trade system that they allowed the terrorists to kill some British soldiers to instigate their revolution. And then with the propaganda machine and the desperation of millions of Jewish people from Europe, were able to get this, and the United Nations complicit. And then they got Harry Truman to recognize it, just boom, right away. And that has been a British project as well. So these are part of the work that we do here at McDuff Lives, is to study these connections to the old empire and to try to expose it, so that, if you look into Major Louis Bloomfield in the time of Kennedy's assassination, what was he doing? This guy is both a British agent, a Canadian, and a Zionist all at the same time. And he gets an office, he becomes a major in the U.S. Army during World War II.
Wow.
And what was he doing? Conniving with well, I won't go into the whole assassination thing, but just for an example, Major Louis Bloomfield, a British Zionist that infiltrated into the tops of American intelligence.
And those are names, those names that nobody knows, nobody hears about, and yet they have such impact on our country and who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who We Are, the book by Anton Chaikin. And here it is on my shelf right here. Oh, you can't quite see it, but it's there.
Corky says, the Brits, I am an Anglophile, recovered, but still so much interesting history back to even the Romans, Scots, Druids, Picts. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and you know, we're not talking about the British people. We're talking about the British Empire.
Right, right. You know, I saw this is such a sidebar, but that comment reminded me of it. I saw a thing where some guy in, I don't remember if it was England or Scotland. I want to say it was Scotland, but I could be wrong. They found some DNA that dates back thousands of years in some in, archaeological digs, and they were able to tie that DNA to a fellow in Great Britain, you know, who lives right there in that same area. I find that so fascinating, but okay, science, it's interesting.
Well, I am torn about that because on the one hand, I have always been uh, an advocate of personal privacy, and personal liberty depends upon us not having a number stamped on our foreheads, you know?
Mhm.
And so I don't want to give my DNA to ancestry.com or one of those services just because I don't want to be put in the big computer.
You don't wanna be in the database. I get that.
On
I
the
get that. I
on
have
the
mixed
other
feelings
hand,
about
I
it.
on the
Yeah.
other hand, I would love to know, you know, to what what my genetic heritage is going back, you know,
Mhm.
hundreds of years.
Right. And can you imagine being, you know, having your DNA tied to some relic thousands of years old? That to me would be fascinating. You know, and the other thing too is finding out people you're related to that you never knew. I love watching the Henry Louis Gates TV show called Finding Your Roots, and it's all famous people and going back and tracing their roots and their family trees, but at the end, they always run their DNA, and they find that people who have been on the show are often connected to each other. What was the one that I thought was the funniest? Bernie Sanders and, oh, who's the actor who was always playing Bernie Sanders on Saturday Night Live? Drawing a total blank. But anyway, it turns out that they are related. And then a couple of actresses related, and then somebody who actually was connected to Princess Diana and had no idea. It's interesting. And yeah, I'd like to know those things too, but yet the idea of DNA being my DNA being out there and people, well, I've given up on trying to worry about that, you know. It's going to get out
It's
there.
kind of like, you know, a long time ago, I just decided, you know, I'll go ahead and put my uh, identification information on the internet because it's going to get there anyway.
Yeah,
Y-
that's it exactly.
You know, I was thinking we talked to David Kramer Underdown on Tuesday for another fascinating show with him, a deep dive into David's amazing mind and the connections that he makes. And I think it's fair to say that he's tuned into the powerful families and the powerful commercial networks and corporate networks.
Mhm.
And with that, the idea that that's where the real power is. And I really do see that the more research that I do is that, yeah, these people all have networks that they're part of. And even if they're on the other side of the Democratic Republican thing, they're still connected by
Mm.
family or other or financial interest and things. And that's kind of how they trust each other is because, you know, you take care of me, I'll look out for you. That's the imperial way. That's the way that empires keep their interstices together. And the more that they become, the more that I see that there really is, like George Carlin says, a big club, and you're not part of it.
That's right.
And then you see things happening in the government that like President Trump bombing Iran, you know, without asking Congress. It's like, well, why do we have elections? You know, if why do we honor the
Yeah,
Constitution?
why do we have a constitution
Yeah,
if we're not going to obey it?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to make a comment about the constitution earlier, but the conversation went a different way, but I'm very distressed about the First Amendment. I keep seeing all of these things happening that to me are just total violations of the First Amendment. A bunch of EPA employees signed a letter to the EPA head saying they're very concerned about some of these policies and they don't agree with some of the policies that are being implemented. They were all put on administrative leave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I find that shocking. They were put on administrative leave for voicing their opinions? I'm sorry. That is so unconstitutional. But, you know, I do, that's one of the things that I fear right now is that our First Amendment is being tossed out the window. And people are more and more reluctant to voice their opinions because it is punished.
Yeah. Well, I've been sticking my neck out here at McDuff Lives for 7 years now, and I feel the pressure, and I feel disempowered. You know, I don't know if I'm shadow banned or not, but my show, the reach of my show never grows.
Yeah.
So I think they have this thing called shadow banned.
Yes.
Here's your answer, Larry David.
Larry David. That's exactly who I was trying to think of. He played Bernie Sanders on SNL, and it turns out they're 6 cousins removed.
Okay.
And they found that out because of DNA.
But you know, one of my shows that I did a few years ago was how I was. There's a YouTuber that goes under the name Useful Charts, and he makes charts of things.
Yes.
And what he did was he went into DNA and studied that and found that everybody alive today is related to Charlemagne. Something like, or maybe it's everybody from a Western country is related to Charlemagne, but then everybody in the world is related to like some ancient Chinese emperor or something. So the point is that we're all part of one big family. And
I'm feeling a kumbaya moment coming on.
Well, nobody's singing kumbaya.
I know.
You know,
I know.
That's where the big divide is.
Right.
It's the ones that think that they're entitled because they're the smart ones, the intellectuals or the powerful generals or, you know, the Pope, whatever, that think that they have got, you know, the key to driving humanity into its next phase. And there's where, you know, all of this medical stuff comes in. It's because they're actually now using things like vaccines and other means to actually make changes to the genetic, you know, content of our DNA.
Ooh, well, that stirs up a whole can of worms.
Yeah, well, they're doing it, you know, and, you know, right here in America, you know, our country, my country, 'tis of thee, wants to, at least the powers of behind the scenes that are working, you know, on this project, this, what do they call it? Well, transhumanism is a broad word for it.
Okay.
But, you know, creating well, they modeled the human genome.
Right.
And now they're poking around to see, you know, what happens if you do this or that in us. And that's got to be tied to the explosion of vaccines that they're putting everybody through, especially the little kids. You know, I think they're just collecting data and try to fine tune, you know, so this.
Well, Prester John says RFK Jr. wants all Americans to wear digital biometric devices to improve health, in quotes. And the Surgeon General, Casey Means, owns a wearables company. I tried like hell to warn people. No one listened.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing to see, wearing digital monitors to monitor, quote, health. And I like the way you put health in quotes there, Prester John, because it resonates with the idea of One Health. And One Health is the Sustainable Development UN WEF stuff, where they're saying that health is global. Health is, we are like the whole world and the animal kingdom as well, all part of this thing called health. And so when you see them using doublespeak like that, they say we need you to wear this thing in order to promote health. They're not talking about your health. They're talking about One Health, the global health idea.
Well, imagine that you're an employer. You have a whole bunch of employees, thousands and thousands of employees. So your healthcare costs are very, very high because when people get sick, then they have claims and blah, 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 blah. And we all know what contributes to healthcare costs. But imagine if you could monitor all of your employees, and when they start getting sick, you know about it in advance so you can get rid of them before it costs you money. Or not even hire them. To get hired, you have to have your health monitored. And then you find out this person has early stage cancer, or that person, is likely to develop Parkinson's or whatever. So, we don't want to hire them because they're going to cost us too much in healthcare. I could see that happening down the line.
And I can see it as a direct consequence of all of the poking and jabbing that they're doing right now, because they're going to be able to tease information out of us. Maybe they even have little bitty bots inside us that transmit information. And a lot of serious people have said they do.
Right.
But if they can do that, then that it basically saves money for the owners of the corporation.
Would you like a sip?
And sorry,
saves money for the owners of the corporation. What we were talking about with monitoring employees' health.
Yeah, and so, but if you look at it under the rubric of One Health, then the idea that the UN is promoting this idea of we've got to consider the health of the whole planet, including, our interaction with animals and the environment. This has been going on behind the scenes for a long time. And this idea is phony, but it drives the investment into more of these,
medical technologies.
Yeah. And the drive to try to see if they can't improve us with genetic manipulation.
Yeah, well, that genetic manipulation is very, very alarming because, what do we eliminate? Who do we eliminate? And, the whole eugenics, that gets back to eugenics and, forced sterilizations and all of those horrible things.
That's where it is. Like they stopped using the word eugenics at the end of World War II because of the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, the Nazis bad, eugenics bad. But they kept doing it under the guise of environmentalism, because you have to have One Health to have a healthy environment.
So much manipulation, and I think we have only seen the tip of the iceberg about how much manipulation goes on back there.
Straighten my tie here. Well, what else? Let's get some more comments in the show here.
Okay. Yeah, some of these are now out of context, and so I'm not really clear what the reference is. Though we did get a comment about our shared sipping. Deadly Medicine, Creating the Master Race, a must read. Thank you, Catherine. I am not familiar with that. But yeah, that's what they're doing. They're trying to create the master race, but they're also trying to get rid of those who are costing them money. Because that's their main goal, is to protect their wealth over everything else. Protect their wealth.
Yeah. In the early 20th century, for They called them feeble-minded. If you find somebody that you can take, they would have a little test that was made, to see how much they knew about stuff. But of course, the stuff that they asked about was not within the culture of the people that they were trying to get rid of. So they'd say, who was the first host on the Tonight Show, to somebody that doesn't have a television,
Right.
that kind of thing, and thereby, well, this person failed the whole test. We can sterilize him. We need to sterilize that person, and they'd end up, being picked up and taken to some place like Western State Hospital in Stanton, Virginia, and sterilized without their even knowing what they're doing, because they're just told you need a health checkup, or we need to give you an injection or something, and country people, they wouldn't know better.
Exactly.
That's eugenics, and that's that part of it, is so disgusting that I don't think they can do that, at least not in the United States anymore. But they sure did it in Virginia.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that they can't do it anymore, because I do think that some of our rights are being eroded. I mean, there are other things going on that I'm so happy about, so I don't want to sound like somebody who's about to get a label, but I do fear that some of our rights are being eroded, and, they have been doing it subtly for all of this time.
Yeah.
And pretending that it doesn't go on, and convincing an awful lot of people that it doesn't go on, and doing an awful lot of brainwashing. But I fear sometimes lately that it becomes more obvious and it becomes more public, because they can get away with it. So they don't worry so much about hiding it and hiding these horrible policies and actions, because they can get away with it now.
That's what I think, people of my generation are trying to preserve, is that it wasn't always this way. The things that have happened since the coup of 1963 have been strange, like, sending 500,000 guys over to Vietnam for no particular reason, just the general idea of fighting communism, supporting an ally that we created in order to fight the communism.
Right, but the drugs, there's an awful lot
Yeah.
advantage to the drugs that they were able to start, cultivating.
Yeah, but all of these things that have happened since the coup of 1963 are normal to people that are born after that.
Right.
And this is what Yuri Bezmenov, the Soviet defector that taught us about Soviet propaganda in the United States, he said, it's about generations. What you want is, you want to control the education system. And that has been obvious, that's going on, ever our whole lifetimes. They've been taking over the education system and turning it into a mill of compliant citizens.
You know what? I didn't believe that for a lot of years, until I started using social media, and I see how people write, and I see how people spell, and I see how people misuse the English language in horrible ways. And I think, okay, so this person didn't go to college, but they should have learned this in elementary school. It's shocking.
But they don't. We've lost our respect for the English language.
Yes.
It's more
Yes.
it's more fun to make up your own language.
And that, you know what, that's the other thing that's driving me crazy is, yes, we keep making up new words and coming up with all of these portmanteaus and these ridiculous words, and then shortening everything. I'm going on vacay. The English language is really quite useful. We don't need to be butchering it like that.
So that's what happens when they get control of the education system, is that, they don't teach the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. I don't even think anybody knows the phrase, the 3 R's anymore.
That's right. That's right.
dates me.
Catherine says hypernormalization, Adam Curtis documentary. I don't know this. Do you?
No,
Okay,
no.
we'll have to look that one up
It's a
too.
reference for us. Thank
Adam
you.
Curtis documentary. And then another reference, Prester John, the book Medical Apartheid tells a harrowing story about our American medical system. Don't get me started, Prester. Boy, I am so horrified. The more I know, the more I am horrified by the American medical system, and the also the food industry that absolutely feeds, no pun intended or pun intended, the medical system, because the food industry makes us terribly sick. We have all of these packaged processed foods that lead to all kinds of chronic diseases, of which we lead the world in deaths by these chronic diseases. And, so then the medical industry can make so much money because they're treating us for all of these chronic diseases. The medical industry and American medical system is just horrible, horrible, horrible.
Well, that, of course, is my other passion, is to expose the cancer, this incredible amount of cancer that's coming out now, the roots of it that go far before COVID-19, that go back into the Rockefeller Institute's research with Eric Traub, that's been exposed by Adam Finnegan in his book, The Sleeper Agent.
Right.
We spent almost a year working with Adam, reading the book on our show, doing shows with Adam, and excuse me, something in my throat. And that's part of our work here at McDuff Lives as well, is to dig into the real story of the polio vaccines, and the real story of who was Jonas Salk, and who was Albert Sabin, and who was MP Chumikoff. And what Adam has shown is a very deep connection between the manipulation of viruses during the 20th century,
Right,
and the explosion of cancer, and especially in his most important research, the chronic disease like Lyme disease, encephalitis, things that are all traceable to the manipulation in biological warfare, whether it's a leak or whether it's an intentional attack. These things have gotten out, and people are dying from them. And that's why I think there's a big cover up that of all that, and that's why Adam's book hasn't gotten any traction, is that the powers that be are still protecting their image by not letting us know that, oh yeah, they knew that polio vaccine had cancer in it. But they went ahead with it anyway. I mean, you can read it in books. I mean, there's books that will say it, but the American people have no consciousness.
Well, and I've said this a number of times, that we have this attitude in this country that things are safe until proven otherwise. Whereas in other countries, in other industrialized countries, the attitude is things are not safe until proven that they are. But no, I mean, everybody goes, oh no, it's safe. It hasn't been proven. Well, just because it hasn't been proven to be unsafe doesn't mean it isn't unsafe. It just means that nobody has figured it out yet, or done the research, or admitted it, because maybe they have done the research and they do know that it's unsafe, but they're not going to admit it because they don't have to. And everybody goes, okay, that's fine. Well, yeah, I'm going to go eat that fast food, and I'm going to go take those medicines, and I'm going to trust them to manipulate my body.
That's because we all want to believe in America. We all want to believe that America is that good country that we were taught, when we learned the Pledge of Allegiance, and, respect for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And we all want to believe that. I think probably even the young people want to believe that America is not the country that you can't trust, you know?
Right.
All the rest of the countries, you can't trust. And look, America is unique in its founding as the government exists by the will of the people, and not because of some hereditary thing like King Charles of England, and not because of a religious domination of the world like the Catholic Church has tried to do for centuries. No, just because we are the people and we chose, to create this government. So we should be able to trust one another. We should be able to relax. And if somebody has got something for sale, we should feel like, well, it's not going to poison me. Why should I think it's going to poison me? That guy's an American. He wouldn't do that. Whereas most people grow up in a place where you trust the government. Are you nuts? The government is nothing but a dictatorship, maybe with the color of a republic. But you can't, nobody around the world trusts their government like the United States, like we do. We trust our government. And I want us to trust our government, but our government is going to have to do some work. And that is to expose the coup of 1963 and do something about it. Say, no, we're not going to continue down that path. And I see so many benefits to the country of renewal of who we are. If we could just call out the perpetrators and expose it and say, no, this was not the will of the people. This was Alan Dulles doing the will of the people that control him.
It's 12 o'clock, and I think maybe we should end on that note, because that's where we started today, and I think we've kind of come full circle, and that is we need to undo the coup and go back to the America that our founding fathers created 249 years ago. Next year is going to be the 250th, and it's going to be a big deal. And between now and then, we need to get the word out to undo the coup.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Undo the coup. It is. And happy 4th of July, everybody. I hope
Happy
you
4th.
celebrate with your family, friends, and stay safe. And think about the little dogs.
That's right.